anything too profane, as we do. Yeah, this is it's going to be an interesting conversation, that's for sure, because there's a lot of the options I think are kind of odd,
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm a fan of odd, but with some of these, yeah, I'm just like, who is that for?
True. Yeah, who is this for? I couldn't tell you.
It's like, didn't they learn their lesson with that last Jimmy Olsen book?
Did it really not do that well? I mean, I'm not surprised, but I heard a lot of people really liked it.
It wasn't that it was bad. It was just like not that many people are going to buy it.
Yeah, but I guess I'd rather have those books that nobody's going to buy but are actually really good, I mean that's basically how we got Vertigo.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I think that Jimmy Olsen book was also one of the ones selected from one of the previous round robins, though.
They did another one?
I think so. I think they've done it before. But I could be mistaken. I could be mistaken.
I never knew that. I feel like I would have heard about that, but it's possible I didn't. I don't know.
And again, I could definitely be mistaken. It's happened before. I'm rarely wrong, but I'm often mistaken. Once I thought I was wrong, but it turns out I was mistaken.
Once I thought I was wrong, but I was actually just in bed with your mom.
Who knew?
That would go over well, huh? Yeah, we talk about comic books here. That's what we do.
From time to time.
On occasion, Where are all the people?
Let's see here. Yeah. Well, and again, with me sleeping most of the day, I didn't get a chance to promote it quite the way that I normally would, but
yeah, it's all good, dude. I mean, we'll get to chatting, and if nobody shows up, then it's just us, and we're good company. So,
yeah. And I mean, if they don't catch it live, the video will be up. So,
Yeah. So if you're watching this later, you should have watched it live. But, just glad you're watching it, I guess. I guess I can't actually. I had this document up. I started writing on this new comic book pitch that I may be bringing to a publisher that we know and love, but I don't want to say anything yet.
Right on. Don't jinx it.
Yeah, exactly.
And don't let them hear you be like talking and be like, hey.
Yeah. Don't get too ahead of yourself, fool.
Right.
All right, well, I guess we'll just do our thing, and if people show up, then they will show up. Cool. So I'll intro us in. Hey guys, welcome to the 73rd episode of Let's Talk Comics, where myself and other co-hosts in the comic book community discuss one of the many facets of the storytelling medium that is comics, whether it be creators, constructs, adaptations. We hit it all this week. I'm joined, of course, by the one and only in a, I think, very welcome close return to his last appearance on the channel, NerdScum. Brother, what's going on?
Not much, sir. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, that's I don't even know what I was going to go there. It's my pleasure, dude. I'm glad to do it. I knew that you were the guy I wanted to approach about having on and discussing this one because the picks are kind of eclectic, and you're the most articulate, eclectic person I know. So I was like, why would I have this conversation with anybody else?
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Of course. Mark McKeever says, well, you can mention it. No one's here. You're not getting it out of me yet, Mark. But hopefully you will see it on a page one day, because I low-key think it's one of the best things I've ever written so far. So that's fun. But thanks for popping in, Mark. We appreciate you. So as you all know, well, based on the thumbnail at least, we'll fill you in. DC is conducting a poll through Twitter, and I think maybe their Instagram, but from what I know, the most official source is their Twitter, letting us, the fans, the readers, the haters, vote on what we want next out of DC Comics. Now, there are sort of titles and fairly vague short descriptions, and from what I understand, is that every time they move up to a new round, you'll get more information, although I feel like that information should have been given to begin with so that we don't, make the wrong choice with what limited information we have now. Mark says, snaps fingers, I tried. So that's really kind of what's got me. And again, the descriptions are so vague. Like, I mean, you and I were talking prior to going live, and I think one of the biggest concerns is I would read any of these books depending on who was on it, who was writing it, who was drawing it, hell, even who's coloring it. And the thing is that the way the brackets are working out, there are a couple of choices that I'm like either indifferent about, or I could go either way and would totally depend on who's wanting it. I don't know. How did you feel going over all of the different options for this first round?
Yeah, it's like very, very similar because while on surface level, there are definitely some books on here where I'm just like, who the hell is that for? At the same time, I'm like, yeah, if you have the right creative team, like, great example is like, the Etta Candy book. Mm-hmm. It's like, I love Etta Candy as a character. I'm glad she exists, but like, who is that book for? But then again, you put the right writer and artist on that book, and like, yeah, I can see it doing really well and like being a really nice kind of, exploration of a very kind of marginalized character.
Yeah, like the first thing I saw, well, I don't know, it feels a little bit more like a young reader's book, just on premise. I hear Etta Candy, I'm like, I kind of want a Mark Russell Etta Candy book, but when I look at the description, which we'll move into very shortly, I'm not overly fond of it, and I think it is because it certainly skews younger, and some people really do like to dig into that stuff. But before we do really get into it, I want to make sure to let you guys know man, my English is so off today. I want to ask you to leave a like on this video if you end up enjoying the conversation, subscribe down to the channel for more like this, and go click the link in the description below to NerdScum's channel. Subscribe to him. He's got a lot of really cool content coming out now, and if you love your crazy wild zombie stories, he's doing a lot of content around the Crossed, which is really prestigious comic book writers meet the Walking Dead, but kind of cooler.
Crossed, yeah.
So make sure you guys go give him a look, and with all that being said, I'm gonna mumble my way into the bracket here, which I think, to give you guys a visual representation, I put this bad boy up on PowerPoint, and we're going to go through the rounds, the vague descriptions, and our justifications on what we're picking and why we're picking. Let's see. Before we do that, Mark McKeever says, so fans are doing a character popularity vote. No creator info synopsis. Yeah, there are really brief synopses, which we will read, but they're not more than about 2 sentences a piece. And yeah, so from what I understand is that April 8th, when they move on to the next round, they will then reveal the creative teams, which again is probably the most vital piece of information. If you had given me a list of creators and not given me the books, I would have preferred that.
Yeah, honestly.
So there's that. And then I believe when they do give away that first round with the creators, we'll get like 2 sample pages, and then everything that make it into the round after that is going to get like 4 sample pages. So, a lot of it is information that I think we should have from the jump, because God forbid, I don't vote for this Etta Candy book and it's written by Alan Moore making his triumphant return to DC Comics. You know what I mean? So it's a killer. But let's get into this. I'm going to share my screen, and let's see, application window. So can everybody see what I'm seeing through the wonderful magic of PowerPoint?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So let's get into it. We don't need these design ideas. So we've got a pretty eclectic, like I said, selection of books. Some of them, just by looking at them, I know pose a lot of questions. And before we reveal anything, every time I do that, it goes away. Before we do that, I'm curious. At first glance, NerdScum, when you took a look at this bracket, was there anything that either set you off, was a big no, or was like, okay, tell me more? I'm kind of sold.
Again, without having creators attached, there was definitely some that I found intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
So like the way that they've set up their Superman book that's mentioned on here, I was like, that sounds like it could be really awesome. You know, like instinctively, because of all the elements at play with that, I kind of want, like, that's one that I would probably vote for. And you know, I'm always down to give Swamp Thing a shot, and I love the Creeper. He's like one of my top 10 favorite DC characters.
Oh wow.
So like that book, but even with that book, it's like I saw a Creeper, or like Son of the Creeper, and I was like, oh, that could be cool. And then I read the description, was like, you know, it's fine. At least it's not New 52 Creeper.
That's fair.
And like, again, the only one that really, like, again, there's some books on here where I'm confused about who this book is for. But the only book that got like a real, like, visceral reaction from me is their proposed Justice League book. And that's not even so much a knee-jerk reaction to the content of what the book is supposed to be, but the title of the book, which is Justice League Queer.
Yeah.
Which, like, I do want to give DC credit, because it's like, it takes some balls to call your book that. Like, it really, really does. Like, because, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, people watching this in the future, but I was under the impression that that's still a derogatory term. And again, like, I have no, like, obviously I'm, you know, heterosexual, so like I don't have any baggage involved, but also, you know, one of my favorite books, Queer by William S. Burroughs, like, so the terminology doesn't have the baggage for me that it has for a large portion of the community that this book is clearly, you know, garnered towards. But I was still under the impression that that was a no-no. So, and I understand that it's probably one of those things where, like, they're doing this in an attempt to, like, take the word back and remove some of the hateful aspects from it, which is, you know, a positive thing. But, like, I was just, when I first saw it, I was just like, what are you doing over here, DC? Come on.
Yeah, I definitely get that for sure. I remember when I was looking over the brackets and I just saw the abbreviation JLQ, I had no idea what that meant. And it's up against a Robin's book, and I'm always kind of down for good Robin stuff, unless Joshua Williamson's writing it. Yeah, I said it. And so, you know, I obviously dug deeper and found out what it was about, and I agree with a lot of your sentiments, you know, but I do think that the word queer, specifically speaking as a heterosexual male, that I feel like that word has already been reclaimed as the like in a positive light by the community. I mean, literally LGBTQ, like the Q is for queer, so I can't help but think that it's theirs now. But, you know, we'll definitely get into it for sure once we get to that round. And with that, I think that the people have been patiently waiting. So let's get in on round one. We have Green Lantern's Underworld on Fire versus Etta Candy Holiday Hero Incorporated. So let me show my Twitter screen. Chrome tab. Twitter.
Also,
okay.
Like, that's not, let's just say ahead of time also, that's not fair to put those two competing against each other. Like, no matter what the books are about, like, just in terms of, like, popularity of the characters, it's like, you really should be tiering these things against, like, you know, like products or like characters who have, like, a similarly sized fan base.
Maybe, but I think that, like, putting anything up against Etta Candy is just grounds for its demise.
I mean, that's probably a fair assessment, you know. Yeah, that's probably a fair assessment.
But I definitely get your sentiment. So let's get on into these really brief synopses. So Green Lantern's Underworld on fire. Kyle Rayner and Kilowog are on the case of space outlaws raising the intergalactic underworld sector by sector. But will Kyle go by the book when he finds out who's all behind it? Bum, bum, bum. And then you have Etta Candy, Holiday Hero, which, like, I'm wondering if it was a typo with Holiday having two L's. I don't know. Yeah, unless that's just like a British thing that I don't understand.
Yeah, it's weird. God, something in my subconscious is saying that is actually referential to something, but it's Etta Candy, so my brain's not coming up with it. But I do feel like that there is something within Wonder Woman's mythology that is directly referencing, though.
Okay, interesting. So in regards to that, the synopsis is that when an accident grants Etta Candy superpowers, she joins forces with Wonder Woman and her sorority sisters to protect anyone in need. Now, do they mean sorority in the sense of like a band of women, or do they literally mean that this is like one of those, we're doing a college drama and Etta Candy's in college? Like, because they did it with Batman. They did that Gotham High thing, so I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah, and then also, like, if you take a look at like Grant Morrison's Wonder Woman Earth 1 that's been coming out, they have a really bad reinterpretation of Etta Candy in that series, which is like the focal point of that is her being like part of a sorority. And it's not really a direct reference or directly Etta Candy, but kind of a reimagining of the things that character is supposed to be in a lot of ways. So, like, yeah, I can see that, though, being something that's kind of, supposed to be skewing to more of like a high school audience or something like that. But yeah, it is questionable because it is so vague. Like, do they mean that, or do they just mean her sorority of other female characters?
Exactly. Yeah, it's so hard because the way they've presented the options just do nothing any real justice, because like we said before, the lack of creative teams is huge. Like anybody that's really been reading comics for any, and I don't even want to say an extended period of time, like if you've been reading comics for a year or more, there is no doubt that you have already started to discern what you like, what you don't like, and who those things are from, regardless of whether or not it has your favorite character or not. And that is the biggest thing for me, and I assume the same for you. But again, these descriptions are so vague because we're on round one and we're already kind of questioning, like, okay, is this a children's book, a YA book? Is it her being in college? Like these, it's pretty vague. And so I kind of just want to put the disclaimer out, and I'm not going to speak for you, but I assume we're in the same shape, is that like, I kind of fully expect for there to be at least one thing going in round two once we learn a little bit more, where I'm like, oh shit, I wish I voted for something else.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely a feeling I get.
So based on this, I don't even know if I need to ask you, but NerdScum and everybody watching, let me know down in the comments for round one, what are you picking? And if you haven't yet, there's a link in the description below to the actual poll on Twitter. What are you thinking, man?
Well, it's kind of, we didn't, it's weird as much as like not trash that I just taught, but as much skepticism as I just said. I might almost go for Etta Candy just to see what the hell it is. But also because when I read the description of that Green Lantern book, I'm like, isn't this just the Omega Men, but with Kilowog? And also despite my age and when I started reading comics, like, and I know that this is going to be heresy to some people, I don't really give a crap about Kyle. Like he's not a horrible character. I don't dislike him, but I've never been like, John Stewart is my Green Lantern. I dig Hal, I dig Kyle, but like in terms of like a fan vote where I'm just like, you give me a Green Lantern character. So yeah, like the description sounds cool and I love Kilowog, but I have to honestly say that on this one, I'm kind of leaning more towards Etta Candy just because I want to know what the hell it is.
That's interesting. Okay. I get your rationale. I I mean, I was a kid when the Justice League animated series came out. So, John Stewart was like the first Green Lantern whose name I actually knew. I will say that after reading comics and thanks to the continuity god, Jeff Johns, Hal Jordan has, like many others, crept up to becoming my favorite Green Lantern. But I do have an appreciation for Kyle. I have an appreciation for pretty much all of the Earth Lanterns, except for Bendis's Earth Lantern, for many good reasons. And so I know this is kind of derivative, and it reminds me a lot of like the Green Lantern Corps book quite a bit from like the mid 2000s, but I am gonna have to go with Green Lanterns. The premise just is a little bit more engaging. Kyle and Kilowog are characters that I ultimately care about more than Etta Candy, and again, I don't like the vibe that I'm getting from this really brief synopsis. And to be fair, that could totally be the fault of the synopsis. I mean, Etta Candy could turn out to be the best thing since freaking Sandman. Who knows? But this synopsis isn't doing it any justice. It comes off as a book that's definitely not aimed towards me. So I'm definitely sticking Green Lanterns Underworld on fire. But I'm curious, anybody watching this, what they would pick out of these two. Before we get into number 2, Mr. DC Comics says, put Bendis on JLQ. It means he's off the book we like. I don't think DC would be able to stop the dumpster fire of people that would come at them for having a non-queer person writing Justice League queer. I mean, I'll get into my thoughts about JLQ, but ultimately it does make sense to have that book like represented through somebody who is actually queer. So, right. Although I do generally get the sentiment of getting Bendis off of books we like. So
yeah,
here's to that.
Also, real quick before we move on, I should also mention that another reason why I'm hesitant about the Green Lantern book is a personal bias of mine. Because I don't know if you've ever read the book by Mark Waid, Underworld Unleashed.
That was one of those events that I love mid 2000s DC. I like it a lot, actually. And that was one of those books that I obviously saw on all of the reading lists, and just based on what I had read about it was like, nope, I'm just going to keep enjoying the mid 2000s DC.
Yeah, like I don't care for that book. And so every time I see a DC title that has the word Underworld in it, it gives me hesitation. I know that's a personal bias of mine, but it's also probably another reason why I'm leaning more into just curiosity on this one with the editor. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you acknowledging that for sure, because a lot of people wouldn't have. Mark McKeever, per usual, poses a really interesting question, and he wonders if the losing stories will end up in an anthology book. Now, I think that's possible. I would even contend that I think all these stories will exist because they're already putting in the time, money, and effort to commissioning pages. There's no way that that prior to round 1, they didn't start commissioning pages for round 2. I mean, if by round 2 they're already showing off pages, these pages have probably been done by or close to the time they released this poll, if not beforehand.
Yeah, like they had to at least commission them like 3 to 6 months ago in order to make sure that they had them all. And depending on the creative teams that they're putting on them, some of them, like if you got Frank quietly working on one of these freaking books, then you have to ask that guy 6-8 months ahead of time to get started,
That's true. Although I definitely get the sense that DC is not shelling out for that talent post Future State.
Fair.
Nor do many people seem inspired that are working at that capacity to work with them, unless they're obligated or given carte blanche. But yeah, I do like Mark's question, because I think for the books that show very little to no popular interest, I think an anthology series or a feature in an anthology is the way to go, just in terms of like financially speaking, but also DC has found a lot of success in these anthology books. For better or for worse, it is currently flooding and continuing to flood their publishing line. And I'm not going to lie, like, if it weren't for those, my DC pull list would be pretty minimal right now. Like, what am I picking up at DC? Well, I'll tell you what anthologies I'm picking up at DC right now. Batman Black and White, Superman Red and Blue, mostly because that Gary Frank cover was stellar on the first issue, but hey. The Batman Urban Legends or whatever, the one with Chip Zdarsky's Batman Red Hood story. Yeah. I feel like there's another anthology that I'm buying that I'm probably going to regret because they're way too expensive.
Yeah. And, also, like, it makes sense because, like, when you think about traditional comic book story structure, if you're talking about your first issue, oftentimes, like, what you have is a little mini mission that sets up the, kind of the tone and the feel of this book, which is usually like 5 to 8 pages. So if they're already commissioning like 4 pages and they've given everybody that kind of common story structure as a starting point, then yeah, like getting another 4 pages off of like the spec pages that they're already going to be showing us. And then literally what you have is just like a very small encapsulated mission that kind of has the basic plot of this thing. And then releasing that in like an anthology is almost a no-brainer because again, it's like they already spent the money on it,
Yeah, 100%. It's tough to tell what's really going to come out of it, but yeah, I think that the idea of the anthology is, for better or for worse, a proven financial success for DC. And again, just given what we already know, makes a lot of sense. But I'm going to put our choices here in a bracket so everybody can see. And you know what I'm thinking? Maybe upon every round we should do one of these lives to go over our pick for the round. Just as to not, because we're going to keep getting more and more information, and I don't want to fill out the entire bracket like round for round, knowing that we're going to get more information later. You know what I'm saying?
Right on.
So we'll definitely be doing round 1 today, and I'll put our choices here. I'll do mine in yellow. What color you want, my guy?
Why don't we go with red? I think that'll look nice against that blue background.
So you're going Etta Candy, huh?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So I'll be in yellow. NerdScum will be in red. So round 1, we actually have a split decision here. So moving on to round 2, we have The Brave and the Bug, Crisis on Infinite Ambush, and Zatanna, the King of Nightmares. And I think this is going to be a really interesting one because I honestly think that my choice is not going to be what people would expect necessarily. And I don't think my choice is going to be the popular decision either. But let me see here. Moving on to this. Going to Zatanna and Ambush Bug. So The Brave and the Bug, Crisis on Infinite Ambush. Ambush Bug must survive an attack by other ambush bugs from across the multiverse who never got to exist thanks to his refusal to be rebooted. That sounds like a lot of fun. Zatanna and the King of Nightmares. Something is wrong with Zatanna's powers, but before she can heal, she has to confront her worst fears as well as a terrifying new foe, the King of Nightmares. Now, I'll tell you right off the bat, I'm picking Ambush Bug. I 100% picking Ambush Bug. And I know very little about this character, but I think the premise is really engaging. I think it plays really well with sort of where he stands in the context of the DC universe. And while I love Zatanna and I'm very fond of that character, this pitch we've seen before. We've 100% seen this before. Hell, we saw it in Justice League Dark when James Tynion started it up a couple years ago, but with a much more interesting approach using the other kind. It's super derivative, the magic's not working. She must face fears. What we do now. So, although I like the character of Zatanna, and you never know, the creative teams could have shifted my mind, but based on what we know, The Brave and the Bug, man, sounds like a fun series. I think it's different from what we're used to. And for the sake of that, I'm picking Crisis on Infinite Ambush. NerdScum, what are you thinking?
Yeah, like you were saying with the Zatanna book, I really like Zatanna. She's a great character, but not only have we seen this story done with her, this is literally the story that almost every new writer who comes on to a magical based character's book does. Like, we've seen it done with Doctor Strange infinite number of times. We've seen it done with her multiple times. We've seen it done with Dr. Fate. Like, it is like the most stock story arc that you could possibly do with a character. So yeah, and like I actually really like Ambush Bug. So I'm going with Ambush Bug as well, because again, like the premise is really fun, and also it kind of, even though DC screwed this up over previous years, it's like, you know, the fourth world's supposed to exist outside of the multiverse. Like there's not supposed to be infinite versions of this, but playing with that whole idea, giving it, if you give it to the right creative team, like that could be really fun. Mind you, I didn't like the last Ambush Bug book that they did, you know, but that doesn't necessarily mean that this one won't be great.
Fair. Yeah, no, you make a good point. And you know what, man? Like, just looking at the pitch, and I guess this writer is like kind of a default answer for most books, but I'm like, give it to Grant Morrison. Like, make me feel like I'm reading the next biggest acid trip compared to that one issue of his The Green Lanterns with what's it called? The one that that was a team up with him and Ollie Queen when nobody actually knew what was happening.
Yeah.
But I feel like Ambush Bug just like I'm not even going to reiterate myself, because I think we both sort of have a very similar rationale. While we both love Zatanna, I think that the pitch is just so vanilla, and I would much rather go concept over character.
Yeah, absolutely. And also it's just like, even just by the description, the Ambush Bug story seems like it's more developed already, you know? It just
Yeah.
it feels like there was more thought put into that description than like anything on the other side with the Zatanna book. So
100%.
as much as I love Ambush Bug, but like I love Zatanna. It's like normally I'd go with her, but like if that's the story you're giving me, like this stock piece of, you know, dribble, then like yeah, I will take a chance on the Ambush Bug.
Yep. Yeah, we're definitely pretty much in the same position. Except you probably know way more about Ambush Bug than I do. But Comic Boom pops into the chat saying Ambush Bug and Chip Zdarsky, please. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. You know what? That would be a lot of fun. And there's a bunch of creators that I can think of who would do a great version of this. You know, especially, you know what? Even Tom King could probably do a really cool story with that. And because it's Ambush Bug and he's a less popular character, less people would freak out about the crazy stuff he would do. But also, like Ambush Bug, in his history, like almost every writer who's dealt with Ambush Bug has a completely different take on that character.
Yeah, I like I was mentioning before about like the really intriguing context behind the character and the sort of space that he lives in. I think it really lends to that. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more, man. Really. And what kills me is that, of course, it's getting its ass kicked in the poll. So I'm just gonna have to ask that everybody and their mother listen to our rationale and go vote for Ambush Bug, for the love of God.
If you don't, then you're part of the problem. And I don't mean that in the real world sense. I mean that the bug people on New Genesis are like a subjugated race of people, you know? Like you know.
Yeah. So
that wasn't as funny as it sounded in my head.
It's okay. We'll save you from that and move on to round 3. So we have Lobo, Animal Man, Scorched Earth. This sounds so 90s, it's not even funny. The main man's latest contract leads him to do the unthinkable. I don't think there's really anything unthinkable for Lobo. So anyways, for the next 6 months, Lobo will protect the superlatives out of the earth at all costs. Okay. Son of the Creeper. An awkward teen's life turns upside down when he inherits his dad's chaotic powers. Now Kieran Miller must save a father he doesn't know from the monster he's become. So, hear me out. These both sound kind of dumb. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, I don't want either of these, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I would probably. There is one coming up where I kind of liked both ideas, and I would rather just get them both and get rid of both of these, to be quite Franklin Delano Roosevelt with you. And I'll explain sort of my issue with the top one. It sounds so vanilla. Like, first of all, I don't care about Lobo. I do like Animal Man. I'm a big fan of Grant Morrison's Animal Man. I liked Jeff Lemire's Animal Man for what it was, but this is just this is just not the way that I would ever want somebody to pitch this story to me. It sounds so unoriginal. Like, it's so funny. On my first personal Facebook, I literally just posted something about how I don't understand how there are swaths of really, really up and coming indie creators trying to create these super unoriginal derivative superhero universes. And I don't get it, why you would just want to do somebody else but worse. If you're gonna do indie superheroes, have a pitch that makes it different, i.e. Black Hammer or Invincible. And this is just the most generic, the bad guy kind of does the good thing.
Right. Well, and again, kind of like with that Green Lantern book, we just got a book where Lobo stayed on Earth and was a hero back during DC Rebirth. It was called Justice League of America, and no one bought the book. I guess they figure they'll sell more copies if Lobo's name is in the title. But I'll be frank about it. If Keith Giffen isn't working on the book, then I don't give a crap.
That's fair. I mean, I would read a Lobo book. I wouldn't read this pitch. It's just this pitch really turns me off. And at first glance, if you just said the title, I would have picked Lobo, Animal Man, Scorched Earth.
Right.
But let's get in and parse out our options and get into the Son of the Creeper. Also, Mark McKeever acknowledges that I do, in fact, want you to stuff the ballots for Ambush Bug. So everybody go vote for Ambush Bug. Stuff those motherfucking things for me, please. And thank you. Son of the Creeper. And I already read it. I'm an idiot. Moving on into this one, though. Again, it's this feels like it's aimed at the YA to kids audience, a kind of generic coming of age story. I mean, this I feel has the most potential, just because if it's done by somebody with a sort of, again, not to use him again, but Grant Morrison angle, and it becomes this sort of conversation or expression about the sort of mental anguish that comes from being abandoned as a child, combined with the sort of already maddening circumstances of the Creeper. This could be really interesting, but again, the way it's pitched, not intriguing, and again comes off as YA.
Yeah, and again, Creeper, I love a lot of those characters created by Steve Ditko.
Mm-hmm.
And Creeper, along with The Question, are some of my favorite characters he created, to the point where I will buy just about any Creeper book that's out there. And there have been really good ones and there have been really bad ones. But again, this whole, and what's even funny is later on the list, we'll find another book about a legacy hero that the plot is almost identical to this. And where it's literally the younger version of the character trying to be a hero and save someone as they themselves is also progressing towards potentially being the villain of the book. And it's okay, again, we've seen that so many times before. And at the same time, it's just when's the last time you just put out a good Creeper book?
Yeah.
Why are we diluting? Also, oh man, it really is one of those things where I have major issues with both of these.
Mm-hmm.
My issue with Lobo is the fact that when he's created, he's supposed to be a satirical character who's a send up of gritty, hardcore, unkillable characters. But now, because people didn't get the joke, that's just the character. He's just another version of Wolverine, except on a space motorcycle.
Yup.
And with the Son of the Creeper, it's just I just keep wanting a good Creeper book, because outside of Ditko and maybe I don't even remember what year it came out, but the run we had before New 52, those are the only notable Creeper books that we've had. So it's just at their core concepts, I have issues with both of these, which make it difficult for me to pick. It's I don't know.
Yeah, and just being transparent. I mean, as you can see, like my Twitter vote, like I voted for Lobo Animal Man the first time, but after giving it more consideration, I don't know if I would, just because I think that despite the fact that the Son of Creeper might be a YA, the chance that it's not and could be this really thoughtful approach to the abandoned child story, but with the mental anguish of the creeper and all of that insanity. I don't know. I might already regret my vote in the poll there, man. Between these two, what are you thinking?
I mean, like, just for the chance to see, because like Lobo is also so oversaturated to a certain degree. Like they just made a new, like, after they ended their last DC animated universe, the first movie they did is, a Superman movie, and Lobo is one of the main characters of that movie.
Mhm.
So like Lobo at this point not only has gotten so far away from the version that I like, that it makes me not care. He's also so oversaturated that I'm going with the Son of the Creeper. Because again, as much as that story sounds stock, you put the right author on that story and it can be really cool. Like it could either be really good or it could be like when they gave Plastic Man a son and no one gave a crap.
Yeah, yeah, and even upon, I think, verbalizing my opinion and listening to what you have to say, I really do regret my vote for Lobo and Animal Man, and I think that just based on the potential and the oversaturation, like you'd mentioned, of Lobo, I think I would also go Creeper. So I think we might just have to be disappointing and have the same picks here again, man.
Although I will also say that for me personally, if it had been Daughter of the Creeper, I would have been 50% more interested.
Okay, why is that? I'm interested in that.
Just because I feel like Son of the Creeper is like, I love the Creeper and he has a lot of interesting complexities that you can put into him, but like I feel like just in terms of visuals and things like that, like having the Creeper embodied as a female character is a more interesting take, and I think that the psyche of a female character brought to the kind of attributes that the Creeper has is a more interesting take as well.
Okay.
Um, and like seeing like a attractive, crazy young woman in that role to me seems more fascinating than like basically just a carbon copy of the father character.
I think you have a really good rationale, and that potential is pretty engaging. I like that, and I think it makes a lot of sense. But if it were whoever was on it, they would have to be the very much the pensive type in order to pull that off to that degree. Who knows? Maybe it'll be you at some point. Let's see. Silver Batman Ranger pops in saying, "Hello, everyone. I made it." Well, welcome, my friend. Glad to have you. Comic Boom also says, "Beware the Creeper" was a Vertigo series that had a female creeper in the 1990s by Jason Hall.
Yeah, I've read that one. It was something. It was fine. It was fine. It had a lot of cool aspects to it. I definitely read it again over the New 52 Creeper book. But no, I mean, like, and I know it definitely has its fans out there, but yeah, again, it was fine. You know what I mean? But I do think that like me feeling like that book had a lot of potential to it that wasn't really explored is probably what makes me say that I think it'd be more interesting to do the Daughter of the Creeper.
Yeah, and like we'd mentioned earlier, the one of the biggest downsides to this whole thing is that we don't know who's on what. So we could end up getting somebody that is going to do, this stock, abandoned son story, or we could get, a revolutionary run, and we won't ultimately know until it's done, but we won't even really have an inkling unless we know who is on it. So we could end up getting something that looks similar or worse to that Vertigo series in the 90s, or we could get something great. It's so hard to tell, but DC isn't doing itself any favors with these synopses and the lack of information. So let's move on into the, what is it? 1, 2, 3, fourth round. JLQ. and Robin. Now, this I think is definitely one of the most interesting rounds of this whole shebang for many reasons, for many obvious reasons. But I'll get into the little synopses. So, JLQ, 8 young queer heroes investigate a series of monstrous manifestations around the world and discover that something much more terrifying is coming, aka Justice League Queer. And then we have Robins. A small group meets at Dick Grayson's apartment, but what's brought them here isn't that they're all former sidekicks to Batman. They're just being hunted by one claiming to be the first. Now, I think just for so many reasons, I'm going Robins. 100% going for Robins between these two. Mostly because like I get that people are upset that the whole Batman brand is saturated. I am also upset, but you know what's not? Robin. We don't really get a lot of Robin, and I know, the time that we're talking about this doesn't really work as much in my favor because Damian Wayne's about to get a book. Well, damn it, I want a good Robin book, okay? I just don't want a Robin book to have a Robin book. So there is like my own initial bias that I'm totally admitting. I like it when the Robins and the Bat sidekicks get together without Batman. It's interesting. They're great characters, and I think a lot of them deserve a lot more time getting fleshed out. But JLQ is something that I kind of inherently have a problem with. And while I am in the same camp as Corey in the sense that I think I'm glad that they're putting a book out there that represents a greater number of people that aren't myself, because I've seen plenty of stories where I feel represented. The initial issue is that they're putting identity politics in front of the story, as opposed to putting identity politics as an aspect of the story. And that almost always steers you wrong. Why was Kate Kane's Batwoman so good? Or why was Greg Rucka's Kate Kane Batwoman so good? Because they weren't abashed about the fact that she was queer, but it was a part of her character, and it lended well to the circumstances of the story. But it wasn't the story. It wasn't the thing that we were coming to read about. We were coming to read about Kate Kane, who also happens to be queer and doesn't shy away from it, but it's not the focus of the story. I also don't like how like we just dilute the name Justice League. Like, you're a team, you're a Justice League. Yeah. No, man. Yeah. The Justice League are the tippity freaking top. And with the exception of something like JLI, that I think is just inherently campy and funny and a cool sort of satire of the whole thing, I don't like it when we overuse the term Justice League. Create a new team. I also just don't really love the idea that you're like, it just happens that 8 young queer characters come together who all are identified by this one set, like this one fractional sect of identity. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like were you at a convention or a rally when you all met? Like, does this, it's not like when even if you were to make this a sort of, or categorize a team through race, right? It could be a demographic thing. Like, these people could meet in the same place that have a high percentage of this demographic that are there. But I don't get the sense that those numbers really operate for sexual orientation. I don't know. Again, this isn't some anti-queer thing, because because I think it's just as fine. And like I said, Kate Kane, I think her Batwoman stories, if you were to say Greg Rucka was coming back for an ongoing Batwoman book, I'd read the shit out of that. But I just, again, it definitely comes off as identity politics over story. And when that becomes the case, when anything comes over story, by the way, any sense of anything really becomes the priority over story, I'm going to step back.
Fair. So yeah, like, I'm going to go ahead and put this out there. This right here is my least favorite bracket in this entire lineup of brackets. Okay. And again, part of that is because of my own bias. As a Batman fan, I hate how many Robins there have been. In the same way that despite the fact that I have this poster on my wall behind me with, Spider-Ham, I hate how many different Spider characters there are. And it's like, the more the more Robins you add, the less special each one of them becomes to me.
Okay.
And also, the more inept it makes Batman seem. And that's a very surface level type thing.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's just like, and I do like moments where all the Robins come together, but I don't really know if I want that as the basis for a book.
Mhm.
On the other hand, everything that you said about the Justice League Queer book is absolutely valid because, like, I mean, let's face it, it's a marketing stunt more than anything else.
Absolutely.
Like, calling the book Justice League Queer is, I mean, for a lack of a better term, it's queer baiting. You
Mhm.
know? Now, does that mean that that story is inherently bad? No, it doesn't actually mean that. But it's very clear, like, it's so transparent.
Mhm.
Now, having said that, I'm picking Justice League Queer
Okay.
because either they're going to realize that they have to back up their marketing stunt with a solid story that really fleshes those characters out in interesting ways, or it's going to be a dumpster fire that's going to be glorious to watch go down in flames.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's going to be the latter of the two. I think this feels like, Marvel Now 2017, but to a really in your face degree. Um, I, I,
Please
I,
put
uh-huh.
Max Massaggio on that book so we can just watch it tank like every other book she does.
I'm not even going to say this person's name. But here's the thing, man. When it comes to the Robin stuff, I agree that, like, yeah, the claim could definitely be made that, like, the Bat Family brand is a little bit over diluted. But I've always kind of appreciated the irony that comics' biggest loner has the biggest family in all of comics, and he doesn't quite see it. Um, and I think that the irony serves much more than just a sort of comedic purpose, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I appreciate pretty much all the Robins except for Stephanie. Because I think they're all really interesting characters. And really my biggest problem is that we keep creating new characters and we're not fleshing out the ones that are there, because I think a lot of them have so much potential. Like, if you said to me, with the exception of Stephanie Brown, Trev, you could write any and all of Batman's sidekicks, I would take my time and be glad to write any one of them. Not just because I am an up and coming writer that would love the opportunity to write for DC Comics, but because I think they're all really interesting characters and I think they all have a lot of value to them. Like, just looking at the sort of the base Robins, right? Like, extending Dick, Jason, Tim, and Damian, they all represent very isolated reaches of Bruce Wayne. Like, Dick is his heart and his athleticism. Jason is his anger. Tim is his intellect. And Damian is his sheer skill without the sort of ethos, which I find fascinating. And then you get into other characters like Cassandra Kane, who I think is just the most grossly underutilized character in the Bat family. She's probably like the underdog pick for me in terms of, like, yeah, I have Dick Grayson stories in my head. I have Jason Todd stories and Tim Drake stories and Damian Wayne stories. But I think I would really go out of my way to tell a Cassandra Kane story because she just doesn't get enough exposure. And even when she does get exposed, I think that she's often done like a disservice. And I brought this example up, and I generally liked Tynan's Detective Comics run in Rebirth. But and this is, I guess, more of a commentary, I guess, on Bruce, but like they made Bruce like ignore her and let her live in the rafters of an old theater.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, what? And we really never. I know my visual's frozen. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, so that usually is a pretty good indicator that everybody else can hear me. I'm gonna turn off cam, turn back on cam. Oh, I'm frozen. Well, at least that's like one of the least embarrassing faces I could have possibly had. But where was I going with that? Point blank is that I think that I would actually like the idea of all the Robins kind of shitting on Batman a little bit and doing their own thing and watching them bounce off of each other, especially if it's done by the right person. I mean, like I said, either one of these could be great and either one of these could be terrible depending on who's on it. Ultimately, like, for as much as I don't like the putting politics before the story in JLQ, if it's a good story, I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna buy it. Like, if the first couple issues comes out and somebody that knows my taste says, Trev, I think you're really gonna like this, I will buy it happily. But again, based on what we know, I'm 100% picking Robins. I am also just more inclined towards those characters, and what you're able to do with them and the potential chemistry between them.
Yeah, and again, like despite my biases, anytime in the comics we have seen all the Batman sidekicks come together, most of the time, like even if it's not great, it's at least entertaining on some level.
Mhm.
And again, like honestly, more than anything, it's just the troll in me that's going with the other option, where I'm like, it'll because for that one, there's no middle ground. It's
Mhm.
either great or it's garbage. And
Yeah.
with the Robin book, it could be anywhere in the spectrum, so it's like again, I'm not that invested in either of these, so I'm going with the one where it's just like, again, kind of like Etta Candy. I just want to see what the hell they're gonna do.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. I don't know. I see a lot more potential in that Robin book. And again, calling a spade, I'm definitely turned off by the sort of, we're gonna put like, they know it's gonna be controversial and they
Yeah.
know it's queer baiting, because I feel like, and with all respect, I'm not like I'm not trying to what's the word I'm looking for? Project my expectations on anybody else. But I feel like there are probably plenty of queer people that are going to vote for this because of the representation, even if they know they're being baited to, because they know that this is one of the only opportunities they're going to get to have themselves represented in a book. And I don't really blame them. Like,
No.
which I think is kind of tragic that, like, this is what you give them. Like, this is the option that you're giving them. And it's so kind of cheesy.
Yeah. No.
And sorry, go ahead, bud.
Oh no, I was just gonna say no. I definitely agree with you on that front. Again, like this is the one pick on this list where literally the entire decision is based on like my own personal bias, and then just my desire, my curiosity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
I definitely believe that the Robin book has more potential, in terms of just being like a straightforward, solid book. But at the same time, I'm also, like I said, I'm just curious, like, what the hell are you guys thinking and what are you doing? And do you
Yeah.
have, and is it just that you have balls to like make this book because the controversy will get you like some press, or do you actually have a story to back up those balls?
Yeah, that is the big question. I unfortunately think it is like the prior, but you're totally right. And I will say one positive is that, and we're both huge Batman fans. I think Batman's both of our favorite comic book characters, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But like, none of these are Batman books, which
Right.
I can appreciate for sure.
Yeah. I mean, Batman will definitely be on the covers to the Robin book to help sell it, but it's not a Batman book.
Shit, for all we know, Batman would be on the cover of the Lobo Animal Man book to sell it.
Yeah, he might be on the cover of all the books. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Etta Candy with Batman.
He just fucks everybody in the sorority. That's the story. Comic Boom says, statistically speaking, the likelihood of that 8 young heroes investigate a monstrous manifestation and all happen to be gay is both absurdly low and wholly irrelevant to the story. Yeah, that's the thing, is that again, they're trying so hard to like thinly justify this book by saying they just happen to all be in the same place at the same time, which is, it just falls into a number of my rationales for not wanting this book.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, I mean, that's absolutely true. You know what? I think we've spent enough time on this. I think we should move on. At this point, we're getting close to beating a dead horse.
Couldn't agree more. I think the horse is certainly, yeah. We are on the toe in the line here. So I will yeet us on over into PowerPoint real quickly. So you're definitely going JLQ. Final answer.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with it. Screw it.
Okay.
I just have to know.
Also, isn't it kind of heresy not to pick the Robin's book in a DC round robin?
Yeah,
Got him.
that's
Got him
actually a fair point.
Got him
But,
good.
you know, transgressive is my brand, so
That's fair. Just because I'm not in love with this book, that's what you get. I'm getting canceled. Somebody's gonna be like, he put a frowny face.
Oh yeah, we're after the conversation we just had, I'm pretty sure we've already both been canceled.
Good thing neither one of us have careers to cancel. Got him.
Right.
So moving on into the next one, we have Paws Off the Justice League and Jesse Quick Control. Neither of these are derivative, but hey. Okay, so Paws Off the Justice League. When the Justice League disappears, Jimmy Olsen and the Super Pets must save the world from certain doom. And you have Jesse Quick Control. As Jesse Quick's super speed fades, wow, shocker, a speedster loses their speed. Not like we've seen that before. She gains a new ability. But when the power begins to corrupt Jessie, she must give it up or risk becoming quite literally her own worst enemy. I'm not like...
So it's the son of the creeper then. Oh.
Yeah, pretty much. I think honestly, I've never been one for hokey, cheesy, funny in comic books. So that inherently kind of gives this Justice League Paws Off book a low mark. And something has to be really, really funny to get a laugh out of me on the written page, I think. And I just, this book feels like it's going to be comedy of the low hanging fruit. And again, disclaimer, could be wrong. We don't know. We don't know who's writing it. So it could totally be hilarious and super thoughtful, pensive comedy. But then you have the Jesse Quick Control, and like, it's like half vanilla, half like, okay, we could do something with this again. She loses her speed.
What's she gonna do?
Yeah, what's she gonna do? Not run? Okay. But and I don't see how it's gonna be cohesive. The whole her developing a new power and it beginning to corrupt her, I think does have potential. Although it does kind of defeat the purpose of calling her Jesse Quick. If she's not quick.
Well, I mean, honestly, they're probably just going to give her the negative speed force. I mean, honestly, like she begins to, because then like you basically have the evil version of the same power set, which again, we've seen them do that with Barry in the Rebirth run by Williamson. And like, you know, we've seen it done multiple times. So like every single aspect of that story synopsis is another one of those where it's just like done to death. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm pretty sure they've even done it like on the Flash CW show, and then like her becoming like her own enemy is like, does that mean her physically, or are they literally going to do like the CW show Savitar thing where it's like a future version of her or something? Frankly, I don't care.
Dude, the whole Flash CW show is Barry losing his speed. That's it. That's the whole show.
Or at least it definitely feels that way whenever he's like, I'm Barry Allen, the fastest man in the world, except every season there's a speedster who's faster than me. Which is not just a CW show problem. That's a Flash problem in general, but because they use so many speedsters on that show, it's compounded.
See, for budget's sake, at least in the comic book, so and this is a slightly different thing. Like, I always have this problem when the Flash, it's like you have the introduction of the episode and the villain is doing the bad thing and Flash confronts him and then Flash gets knocked over and the villain gets away. At least in the comics, like he'll get frozen or legitimately trapped in something, but in the show, he just falls down, and somehow with the ability to move so fast that time pretty much stands still, he can't catch them.
Yeah.
Don't listen. I could rant about that television show predominantly because like I loved the first 2 seasons of that show and really enjoyed it, and then the rest happened and now I hate it. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Comic Boom says another great another Flash story with another Flash character getting crapped on. Only now it's female Flash. It's got my vote. Will the Beard Reviews pops in. Good evening, gentlemen. Good evening, my fine bearded fellow.
Indeed. And I actually really like Jesse Quick as a character. It's another one of those where, like, despite the fact that Flash is yet another character where they just keep adding speedsters to it, it's like, why don't we just make every version of Flash a little less special?
And a little bit less fast.
Yeah. But I do still enjoy her as a character. But on the other hand, it's like, you know what? Like the Super Pets book, I do actually like the Super Pets. And as we saw with things like, the Super Sons annual issue that was Super Pets, like you get the right person on it, that can be a really cool book. My big sticking point on that is like, I don't care about Jimmy Olsen teaming up with the Super Pets. Like, in the Super Sons, it's like, oh, we get Robin and Superboy teaming up with the Super Pets. That's cool. Jimmy Olsen, like, I don't care, Now, if it were Lobo and the Super Pets, I'd be there for it. See, like, if you take like some of these things that people that they have for us to vote on, and you were to mix and match the concepts, then like I'm more on board.
Oh boy, Justice League Queer and the Super Pets sounds like my kind of book. Well, Comic Boom just canceled himself by saying the Speed Force seems to have a mind of its own, a mentally ill mind, appropriate that a woman should control it. He.
You're lucky you're in Canada, sir.
Yeah, you're lucky you're in Canada because I think you just got canceled in the United States, my friend. The land where nobody can take a joke. Thank you. Good night. Can't do worse than Wally or Barry. That's fair. Yeah, I mean, Wally his literal character has been assassinated as he's assassinated people over the last couple of years. So,
yeah.
What a time. Mark McKeever acknowledging Boom's potential hangover coming in the morning here. Wow. But so I gotta ask, NerdScum, what are you picking?
I'm going with the Super Pets. I am going with the Super Pets, and I'm doing it for one main reason. It's because if we can get Plastic Man's bird in here, then, it can be anything, but it's normally a bird. If we can get that character in there, or if, we get Bat Cow or any of that stuff, then, like, I just like the Super Pets, I do enjoy them for, like, the base level entertainment that they are. And at this point, I'm just so worn out on, like, Flash stories or Speedster stories, just doing the same damn thing repeatedly. And the one thing I will give the Super Pets is I've read, out of all the Super Pets stories that I've read, it seems like almost every time they're trying to do something completely different.
That's fair. I get that. I mean, at this point, I think just on the potential that we actually get a decent Flash story, I'm going with Jesse Quick.
That's fair.
I've been kind of butthurt because I dropped Flash around the Flash War a couple years ago, and in retrospect, I knew I should have dropped it sooner, but that was when I was like just starting to get my bearings and my Green Lantern freaking ring charged up enough to drop bad books, even though I really wanted to like them. So just on that alone, I'm good, and the fact that I'm also just not into that kind of goofy comedy, I'm going Jesse Quick.
Right on.
But either way, I really think that this round was slim pickings. I don't really want either of these books, so I'm not really loyal to my choice here.
Yeah, this was probably my second least favorite tier out of all of them.
Which is kind of funny because on the last one, like I feel like Robins could have went up against most anything, and to be quite frank, I probably would have picked it. Like I really do want a good Robin book, and I was really close to actually pulling Robin number 1, and then I really thought about it. Don't get me wrong, I want a Damian book really bad, but not this bad. And I love for like, here's the thing. I don't doubt that Williamson's going to write an okay first issue or has the potential to. I doubt that he's going to actually write a coherent story arc. So
right. Well, also like back right after the whole Justice League No Justice event, when they basically backwalked all of Damian's character development. Like, I don't know where they have him right now because I haven't been keeping up, but like, I had gone from a person who hated Damian when he was first introduced to genuinely, through the work of like Peter J. Tomasi and people like that, really starting to care about that character. And they're like, nope, he's got a black ops prison and he's just going to mutilate like low level thugs because that's who he is. I was like, okay, I don't give a crap anymore.
Yeah, I get. Yeah, I mean that was kind of the intent behind Damian and what Grant Morrison did. It was intentionally be like, yeah, you're gonna hate him and I'm gonna make you love him, and then when he dies, it's gonna hurt that much more. And then Peter Tomasi, just in a really beautiful story. Spoilers for a 4-year-old story, by the way.
Right.
Brought him back, and that's honestly that Batman and Robin run by Tomasi and Gleason was the first omnibus I ever bought, and I am proud. I am proud that was the first one that I did.
Yeah, and like even though Morrison laid in the groundwork, it was Tomasi working on that character that turned me around on him.
I also really, and I love Dick Grayson, and I love Morrison's Batman and Robin. Don't get me wrong, but I did finally want to see that father son dynamic between Bruce and Damian. And again, I love the Dick and Damian dynamic. And if you said to me, Trev, you've been greenlit to write a Nightwing and Robin book, oh my God, would I do that book? And I would be ecstatic to do it. But finally getting the father and son dynamic with a writer like Peter J. Tomasi that is just so brilliant at character and just the heart that comes from Patrick Gleason's art. Oh, it's so good. It's so freaking good. But moving on into the next round, we got Blue Beetle, Graduation Day. When the Reach interrupt Jaime's graduation, the fallout puts his future as Blue Beetle in jeopardy and poses the ultimate question. What does life after high school look like? And then we have Nightrunner, Love in Paris. When the fans of an intoxicating virtual songstress start disappearing through Paris, Nightrunner must track down the infamous developer behind the celebrity AI. I assume that's an I. I hate when they have the freaking stemless I.
Yeah.
Now, inherently, like, I kind of wanted to pick Blue Beetle, and I did, but I'm another one that I'm already kind of regretting because when I voted, I don't think I saw, for some reason, all of the synopses. Because I really do, like, Blue Beetle is like, yeah, let's just kind of do Batman Beyond, but less future. Like, and the sort of all the lore around the actual Blue Beetle scarab, I think is super interesting. The Young Justice television show is actually pretty formative for me, and that did a lot with Jaime and the Blue Beetle. So, like, off the bat, it's the thing I kind of want to pick. But based on the pitch, I might lean Nightrunner. Now, like, the Blue Beetle thing does kind of seem YA. And the fact that in this really sort of poor synopsis, it comes down to the big question is, what is life after high school? It's kind of lame.
Yeah, but the answer is life.
Yeah, like the actual good part.
Yeah, and I'm not even going to bury the lead on this. Yeah, like I'm going with Nightrunner because essentially after the first run of Jaime on Blue Beetle, every Blue Beetle book that has come out has let me down.
Yeah.
And he's been done, like, again, if you talk about like in Young Justice or in some of the other animated stuff, he's always great. But every time they try to give him a team, it's like they don't know how to balance that, like, Guyver meets Miles Morales feel that they're very clearly going for.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, we just keep getting the same basic plot lines rehashed by people who didn't bother to read the last one because no one cared about it, and they think they're doing something original.
Yeah, and I remember when they announced that Jaime Reyes Blue Beetle book for Rebirth, I was stoked. And I think it was written by Keith Giffen.
I think so.
Which was like inherently also like another plus, and it ended up just being real mediocre. I actually I definitely have more of a connection to Jaime as a character as opposed to Ted Kord, like through Young Justice and things of that nature. and to be frank, I never got through all of like JLI and whatnot. I think I've really only read the issue where Batman punches Guy Gardner in the face, which I love, by the way. And I love Guy Gardner because of it. But
yeah, I mean, like Ted Kord is my Blue Beetle. And by the way, you got to read the JLI story arc where Booster and Ted basically embezzle Justice League funds to open up like an island resort, and then they get busted for it, and basically have to work it off by becoming the new janitors at the Justice League.
wait, I thought Ted Kord was filthy rich.
Yeah, technically. I mean, like Ted Kord's like Iron Man or Batman or any of those characters. They've gone through periods of like having money or not having money. But again, also in JLI, so much of it is written for comedy that like, actually, you know what? They might even mention in the book where he's like, because it's mostly Booster's plan. And with like a lot of those things, it's Booster's plan. And then Ted just goes along with it because he's his boy, you know?
Yeah. Booster is definitely the much more active character in their relationship.
Yeah, but sorry, I'm taking us on a tangent here. But yeah, Ted's really more of my Blue Beetle. But like the thing that sucks about that is that I think Jaime has more potential as a character, and we just never see it realized. And from the description of this book, I seriously doubt this is the one to do it.
Yeah, I agree. And then you get to Nightrunner, which I think at the time when I voted, I couldn't put together who this was. But then I thought about it after, and I want to say this is the character from Batman Incorporated, right? Like the Batman of France?
I think so. And I'm pretty sure you're correct in that. And I should also mention that like I don't give a crap about this character. And in fact, hot take here. I know you're going to disagree, but like, I hate Batman Incorporated as a concept. Again, like the thing I was talking about diluting the brand. Like, it didn't work in the 50s when they did a Batman for All Nations, but it's Grant Morrison, and like the book that he wrote is decent. But like, yeah, I don't care about any of those subsequent Batman characters. But just based on the premise alone and how obscure the character is to the general reader, I'm going with that one.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, as you guys can see, I voted for Blue Beetle the first time, but I couldn't put together who Nightrunner was when I voted. I couldn't remember, but now I think I'm actually going Nightrunner. First of all, this is a great title. Like the title of the book, I know it's simple, but that's a great title. And again, the fact that this is like a really underexposed character that has a lot of potential to be explored, I'm going Nightrunner. And regretting my decision. And again, that while I do like Jaime Reyes and I think he has a lot of potential, this synopsis just doesn't like the fact again that the main question is what does life look like after high school is just
even like Mark McKeever saying in the chat, he's like Blue Beetle graduating, I'm down, but that's not actually what happens in the story. It's still before he's graduating. And in like they have a whole thing about like he hasn't applied to any colleges or anything. So like yeah, it's still just more of the same.
Yeah, 100%. So I wish I should have just waited until we talked it out to make my votes. 100%. I regret it. I regret contributing to this Blue Beetle victory over here.
Yeah, because I still haven't actually made any of my votes official yet.
Oh, good. I'm hoping I can convince you to vote Robbins. Cool. I will teleport us magically back to that sweet PowerPoint presentation.
Well, and I should also say I have nothing but disdain for Twitter voting polls.
That's fair.
So like even whenever you first mentioned this to me, I was like, I'm not voting for that crap. I don't care. But I might, now that we've actually been talking it out, I might very well go and actually put in my vote.
Just if you don't want to, just write my mistakes. Just
okay.
Fix the ones that I regret at bare minimum. Okay. If you don't actually want to vote, but definitely vote. You might as well. It's kind of fun. I don't know, because I was obviously, I mean, I wasn't even alive when they voted for Jason Todd to die.
Yeah,
Like, I kind of like being a part of this, even though I know it's all kind of a sham. Just let me live in the moment, okay?
I'll
Um,
have it.
so we're both going Nightrunner here.
Yeah, Nightrunner.
Nightrunner.
Just a
Yeah,
cool title. Like that sounds like the title alone is like, for people who don't know who that character is, that title is so cool. They will at least pick it up and go, "What the hell is this?"
yeah, it sounds like it could be a classic just by reading the title. And Comic Boom confirms my suspicions that
Yeah.
Nightrunner is the Batman of France from Batman Incorporated. And also on your Batman Incorporated sentiment, I don't hate it. I don't hate your sentiment, because I think once it transitioned into the New 52, I think that the quality of Batman Inc. went way downhill. I like the stuff prior. And I don't, just the concept alone, I don't love, but I do think that Grant Morrison executed it well, which is a testament to him, if anything. The potential was there, and I do kind of like the idea of doing like this international sort of spy book with Batman and letting him go, letting him go see all of these different countries and seeing what happens there. It's interesting in that capacity. So.
Yeah.
Plus,
No,
plus
it
at the
wasn't
time, I
bad.
think it was kind of, sorry for stopping and then re-interrupting. But at the time, I do kind of like the fact that they didn't just take Gotham away from Dick Grayson as Batman. Like, they were like, yeah, we're like, oh, Bruce is back, but like the Dick Grayson Batman stuff was so good, so let's just keep letting Dick Grayson be Batman.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, again, the book was not poorly written, and like the concept behind it is interesting. It just rubs me the wrong way as like a Batman purist, I suppose. I don't know. And like the whole idea of like Batman and the spy book is like, again, like the book's not bad necessarily. It just, it's just I just have issues. But we've discussed before that like Grant Morrison's run on Batman is a really good run on Batman that I have a lot of issues with because of general Grant Morrison-ness. Because
That's
as we
fair. It's unapologetically like a top 2 Batman run of all time for me. I love it, but I also like acknowledge the fact that it's one of the things that got me into comics. So there's that. But Boom brings up a really interesting assertion that we should do a Twitter poll on whether NerdScum should submit to a Twitter vote. Look out for that on my Twitter, boys. Go click the things in the bios or type this stuff in on Twitter. Follow us both on Twitter. I will make a poll, and you guys will get to decide on whether or not Corey even considers it, because ultimately he can tell the poll to fuck off. But
no. If the this will be the one Twitter poll that I will give credence to. If people decide that I should vote, then fuck, screw it, I'll vote.
All right, let's do it. Look out for that. If anybody's watching this on recording, it's already done. If you're watching this live, give me like 10 minutes after we get off recording, and I'll throw this bad boy down. But moving in to, I think, the penultimate round.
Ooh,
Which I think this is definitely the most heat. This is definitely the closest out of all of the polls. And it is Swamp Thing, A House of Secrets. Louisiana, 1905, the monstrous Alex Olsen, his widow Linda, and his undead rival Damien vie for control of the cursed swamp where life and death spiral into one nightmare. Or Suicide Squad 7. In South America, Harley Quinn leads an adventurer, a stage musician, a sugar-obsessed killer, a former hero, a drunk assassin, a mute metahuman, and a child who becomes a monster. Well, if you're saying an interesting pitch for a Swamp Thing story or a generic Suicide Squad story, I'm gonna pick the Swamp Thing story. I mean, again, super vague descriptions, but like this Swamp Thing pitch actually sounds, at least through the vague details, a little bit different from what we might be getting. And
yeah,
I'm also just kind of like, while I like some Suicide Squad runs, and while I think the trailers for the new film look phenomenal, this is just a generic Suicide Squad pitch, and this isn't story, by the way. Like, you're just like, here's your cast of characters, but we're not actually going to name them.
But Trevor, don't you see though? They're combining Suicide Squad with Secret 7.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like, unless you're getting Gail Simone to write that, I don't know why anyone cares. And on top of that, like, have you read the Gail Simone books the last couple of years? Like her Plastic Man book. Holy crap. So yeah, like even though the Swamp Thing book is definitely it's a big retcon to what we know of the Swamp Thing mythology, in terms of like that variation of Swamp Thing had a very specific run. But it's like you can always add to that. I'm going with Swamp Thing. I'm a Swamp Thing guy. I love Harley Quinn. I really like Suicide Squad, but my pick on this is for Swamp Thing, like hands down.
Yeah, you know what's funny? I kind of appreciate the fact that like Swamp Thing is having a bit of a renaissance at DC. Like between like the show he got and despite like the tax issues, it actually happened. And I never finished it, which I actually really want to go back and finish it. But from what I saw, it was really solid, and you can tell that a lot of care was put into it at bare minimum. So plus like Blue Devil actually appeared on TV. Like that's in and of itself really interesting. But and like I get your sort of small gripes that you had with this about this the sort of specificity of this context for Swamp Thing, but one, Swamp Thing, two, like it's battling a really generic Suicide Squad story that we know nothing about. And again, creative teams could totally shift the favor, but like yeah, I'm also 100% going Swamp Thing, and this is one of the votes that I certainly do not regret.
Well, and it is also nice to a certain extent, like they've done so much with Alec, the Alec version of Swamp Thing, that like we're at a point now where like really what else can like honestly, even after just Alan Moore's run on with that character, that version of the character, it's like what can you really do with him now? Well, we can give him wings, or a crown, or we can give him make him look like Alan Moore.
Yep, that's what I was going for.
But like that's kind of like everything else has kind of been done, and at least when you're going back to the old version, it's like not only are you paying tribute to Len Wein, who's no longer with us, and his original kind of version of that character, but like like if you get the right writer to do that, the retcon can be done very well and very cleverly and give us something different and unique and a character who isn't nearly as developed.
Yeah, and also I can't. So currently, Rom V just started a Swamp Thing run.
Ooh.
Part of me wants to, like, part of me feels like they're not going to have two at a time. So it does make me wonder if Rom V's run will continue in tandem with this. If Rom V is just going to hop over onto this book, or if they will coexist. I think coexistence seems kind of unlikely, but you know what? I wouldn't be mad with two Swamp Things like Swamp Thing books. Like we have like 12 Batman books. So what's two? So yeah, I think we're both pretty definitive terms picking Swamp Thing here. I don't want to get red flagged on YouTube, so I'm going to call you the Sea Commander, a very recent joiner of the Dark Knight Nation community. Damn, I'm late to the party. Better late than never, man. Glad to have you on a live, and I'm sure I'll see you in the comments later after you rewatch this. Really, really insightful commenter on these videos. So glad to see you here, man. Marvelous Mark McKeever says the voting is pretty damn even on Twitter. Yeah, for this one, it is what 0.6%, which is pretty tight. And there's still plenty of time left, and there's a lot of hype budding around the movie. So I feel like you could get a lot of like normies or not actual comic book readers that stray across this just based on like Suicide Squad, like ticking up the algorithm and then seeing Suicide Squad take it. But I really hope that's not the case.
Right. Yeah, because what we need is another book further diluting the character of Harley Quinn.
I already don't really like Harley that much because of said dilution. So there we are, but I will throw our choices here down on the oh so sweet PowerPoint, as I do. And we will walk ourselves into the final selection of this fine evening. You guys can see the PowerPoint, right?
Yeah.
I put emphasis on it.
What?
Oops. We're both. Why do I keep moving the picture?
Huh.
Bam. All right. So down to the final choice of this evening. The one that at least two of you were waiting for. And that is, somebody drum roll me. Can I get this to work? Yeah, you definitely thought I was going to be on time, but I definitely was not. Asteria, the Last Amazon, which isn't Asteria the character that Linda Carter cameoed as at the end of that Wonder Woman 84?
Oh, you're asking me to remember something from Wonder Woman 84?
It was in the end credit scene. Did you watch the end credit scene?
No, I didn't. Whenever the credits started rolling, I was the hell out of there.
Yeah, I don't blame you. So maybe somebody will be able to clarify.
It's too bad. I really like Linda Carter.
Yeah. Too bad nobody actually liked Wonder Woman 84. Comic Boom says, NerdScum, I thought you liked House of Secrets, and with Swamp Thing, it's an interesting combination.
I do like House of Secrets, and it is an interesting combination. Yeah, I mean, well, that I voted for it. Yeah, all right, but I'm saying that I might potentially vote for it as opposed to the other one. No, yeah, I'm a big Swamp Thing fan in general. So, like, honestly, I was probably going to vote for Swamp Thing no matter what, but I just felt like, I have to both say, like, the pros and the cons, And I do feel like there is potential for, because, like, as me and Trevor were discussing it previously, it's like there have been a lot of Swamp Thing books that when I've heard about them, I've been really excited. And then I've read them and I've been like, oh, well, that was a thing. And there are other times where, like, I've heard about a Swamp Thing book and rolled my eyes only to read it and be like, holy crap, that was really good. So
yeah, that's fair.
I'm a big fan, but I'm very particular. I say that as like I'm literally sitting next to like the 90s Swamp Thing TV show on my shelf.
That's fair. Yeah, that's definitely fair. I also had like maybe not to your degree, but I was also like predisposed to pick Swamp Thing. Also, I think one of these days we'll definitely have to. You know what? We'll talk about it off screen because I have an idea for a really fun, semi-regular recurring show that I think we should do. Okay. So we'll talk about it after, and I'll leave everybody waited with bated breath. But Comic Boom says, I hope Ron V is also the writer on Swamp Thing House of Secrets. He's a natural fit. I totally agree. If you guys haven't watched it yet, go check out the interview, that I had with Ron V. It's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite videos, honestly, I think I've ever done. But definitely one of my favorite interviews. He's a really insightful guy, very thoughtful in his storytelling. And also, go buy Blue and Green right now. It's an Image Comics series about existential horror and jazz. It's fantastic. I think it's one of my favorite things to come out. Did it come out in 2020? Yes. It's one of my favorite things that came out of 2020, if not my favorite thing. So yeah, go read it, or your mom's a hoe.
Hey, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to excuse myself for 1 second. Why don't you give them the rundown of this next thing and then start your thoughts on it, and I will be right back in like just a moment.
All good, dude.
Sorry about that, guys.
All good. Mr. DC Comics says Rom V is on Justice League Dark. That is correct. Unfortunately, it is in the periphery of a Brian Michael Bendis Justice League book. So unfortunately, I had to drop it, but I was buying Rom V's Justice League Dark. Mark McKeever says the big Superman fan was going to vote until I read that horrible synopsis. Asteria actually sounds pretty good. Yeah, Mark, this was definitely one of those things for me that 100%, like I kind of where it came down to me going potentially either way. And it really depended on the creative team, but also, I don't know, the synopsis for Superman Lois is just weird. And let's get into that. So we have Asteria, the Last Amazon. An immortal champion returns to man's world to discover the Amazon sacrifice now forgotten and the secret family she left behind, offering one last chance at redemption. And we have Superman and Lois Ignition. Our solar system is a machine, and its purpose is to trap and kill Superman. Together, he and Lois face ancient aliens and trickster asteroids as they fight to save our future. Okay, so I'm really split here. Like I said, I think this was the one where I said I could kind of go either way, and I would actually prefer both of these as opposed to, the round with Lobo and the Creeper. But it's a tough one because I think that there's a lot more potential out of this vague synopsis of the last Amazon, but I'm also vitally desperate for a good Superman book. And by vitally desperate, I mean like all caps, vitally desperate after all this time with Bendis. And I haven't gotten into his mainline work on Superman in Action, but I was really disappointed by Philip Kennedy Johnson's Superman War of the Worlds. So I'm certainly not optimistic about actually getting into a Superman in Action. So I did vote on Twitter for Superman and Lois, strictly because I'm just so desperate for a good Superman book. But in retrospect, the brief pitch for Asteria, the last Amazon, does pique my interest more. I don't know, man. Where are you at?
Yeah, actually, I'm going with Superman and Lois. Like, it's a big scale Superman story, and if it's frankly, if it's anybody other than Brian Michael Bendis, then it'll be better. But at the same time, again, it just goes back to the thing we were saying earlier. Both of these pitches sound interesting to me, and it all depends on who's making the book.
Yeah,
if this Superman and Lois book was like Grant Morrison's return to the character of Superman, that might be one of the best books of the last 5 years, But at the same time, it could be anybody. So I think that these two, out of a lot of the pitches and the synopsises they've given us, have the most potential.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it's just I'd rather, but honestly, also just as a sci-fi fan, I would rather see that story for Superman and Lois.
That's fair.
Just all the little elements of it and everything, that's the kind of sci-fi writing that I really respond to.
Yeah, I get that 100%. Like I said, it's a really tough call because I think just by itself, if I wasn't so Superman deprived, I might have picked the last Amazon, but my desperation, just called for desperate measures. So I went Superman and Lois. And even now I'm still kind of going back and forth in my head, but, it's a tough one. And like I said, while you were off screen, this was the one I mentioned at the beginning of the show where I was like, I'd kind of rather just take both of these and eliminate both of another round in its place. To be quite frank, because we also haven't had a really good Wonder Woman story in a hot minute. So I would also take a really good Wonder Woman story. I just like Superman more, so I'm a little bit more desperate. And Bendis just Bendised it. So there is that. Mark McKeever says, I think it'll be Robinson Suicide Squad in the final battle. I think that's a potential. I'll have to take a good look at the polls, and it's so early to tell. But I hope Robbins is in the final because I do kind of want it to happen. But ultimately, like we were saying earlier, I think to some capacity, most, if not all of these, I think will see the light of day in some way. So closing it out, are you going Superman and Lois? Final answer?
Yeah, final answer, Superman and Lois.
All right. Yeah, I might have to stick with that too. But again, Asteria, the last Amazon, this wasn't an easy choice by any stretch.
And I haven't been keeping up with what's been going on in the Superman books, but also just part of the premise of them actually seeming like they're a strong couple in that story makes me want all the much more.
Yeah, I agree with that. I definitely agree with that because between Bendis and then what King did in Heroes in Crisis, yeah, their relationship has certainly been butchered. God, imagine if this was written by Bendis. Huh. Because it's not like he hasn't done it before. He's yeah, I'm not doing this anymore over at Marvel. And then he just comes back and does the thing. Or like, remember when Dan Slott ended his Spider-Man run and the next thing he does is like this Spider-Man, like Spider-Geddon spinoff? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm done doing Spider-Man so that I can do more
Spider.
Spider-Man and a mediocre Fantastic Four book.
Oh, yikes. All right. So now that we've made all decisions, I think as we close out the show, we will go through with all of our choices. If you haven't already, in the comments, let us know what you're picking and why. We're actually really interested, and I'm sure the two of us will be parsing through your comments and talking with you about them. And like I said, give us your rationale because we really, really do want to know. And while you're there, leave a like, subscribe to both channels. But let's get into the sort of summary here. So round one, we had Green Lantern's Underworld on Fire v. Edit Candy. My choice was Green Lantern, just because I felt like it was a no brainer. I know. NerdScum wanted to go a little bit. Let's say I don't even want to call it controversial. I think I don't know if you were to summarize your choice.
Curious.
Curious.
Yeah, it's the more curious choice of just like, who is this for and what the hell are you doing?
Absolutely. Yeah, I get that 100%. And then moving on into round two, we have The Brave and the Bug, Crisis on Infinite Ambush, Zatanna and the King of Nightmares. Both of us unanimously chose Ambush Bug, I think for very similar reasons. For me, it was the Zatanna pitch just felt really weak and vanilla. And also, I'm not intimately involved with the Ambush Bug character to any degree, but with what I do know and this very brief solicitation, I think that even if the Zatanna book didn't have such a vanilla pitch, that it would still be a really interesting concept, man. So what about you, man?
Yeah, I am actually I really do like Ambush Bug, and I'm interested to see what they might do with that. And yeah, and on the Zatanna book, like, yeah, like, I didn't like magical characters. Like, it's the first story everyone thinks of is taking their power away and putting them up against some big, powerful, magical character in the same way that, like, every uninspired writer who gets on Superman decides to do a story about him being sad.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, totally agree, man. We're very much in the same boat here. Moving on into round three, we had Lobo Animal Man Scorched Earth versus Son of the Creeper. Another unanimous decision for the Creeper. For me, it's postmortem after casting the vote for Lobo Animal Man, unfortunately. But Corey, I feel like you definitely had a little bit more. I think you had a little bit more weight in this one. So why don't you go first? Just summarize your choice for the Creeper.
Well, I mean, to start off with, just I like the Creeper, and he doesn't get that many books. And even if this is focused on his son, it gives them another chance to take another crack at that character. And by, like, it's a very kind of standard story idea that they're doing, but like it still gives us a chance to add some extra depth to a character that depth isn't really usually what's explored with that character.
That's fair. I think I really did it for the potential. Like I said, I think based on what limited information we have, given the right creative team, that the Creeper story could be very psychological in its approach and what it does with trauma and that sort of exploration. But it also sounds like it could cater to a younger audience potentially. So I feel like it's kind of higher risk, higher reward.
I just realized I really hope Daniel Warren Johnson's doing that book.
Yeah, that's fair. That's very fair. That'd be an interesting choice.
Yeah.
Moving on into what I think might be the most contentious round, we have JLQ or Justice League Queer versus Robbins. I unquestionably chose Robbins. There aren't many things that Robbins could have gone up against for me to not choose Robbins. And that's coming from the guy that thinks the Batman market is oversaturated. But I think the Robbins, although very much in that house, sort of exists separately because the Robins don't get enough credit. I like a lot of those characters. I am really interested to see what the chemistry is like. And I'm desperate for a good Robin book. So they're just like, yeah, here, have all of them. And so, yeah, I go Robins. NerdScum had a differing opinion or a different choice at least. So why don't you let folks know in the end why you chose JLQ?
I chose JLQ just because, again, curiosity. Like, it's clearly a marketing ploy. It's clearly to not only garnish them like good press, but also votes from readers who might not normally pay attention to other Justice League books. And frankly, at the end of the day, in order to call your book this, it's pretty ballsy. And I just want to see if they've got a story to back up those balls, or if it's going to be the kind of dumpster fire that we've seen happen so many times with things like Snowflake and Hotspot or Snowflake and Safe Space from Marvel.
Yeah.
Either way, it could be really entertaining.
That's fair. That's fair. Moving on into the next half of the brackets, we have Paws Off the Justice League and Jesse Quick Control. Another split decision. Neither one of these are ideal for me. I think just the really it is the potential of having an okay Flash book for the first time in a while, and the fact that I don't really like that sort of goofy humor stuff that's just not in my taste, that I feel like would come out of the Justice League Paws Off the Justice League. So yeah, it was simultaneously an easy choice and one that I just didn't care to make, because if you said I got both options in the final bracket, I would say let's just do neither of these. But what about you, man?
No, yeah, I mean, like, just keeping it simple, I just like the Super Pets. And yeah, it could be bad and it could suck, but the thing about it is, even if it's not a great book that I like because of what it is, it'll still probably do decent enough sales numbers because of how many younger audiences it can reach and how many like animal lovers will buy it just for that. And dang it, I need more stories with Plasty. So,
you're living on a prayer, man.
yeah, I know, but yeah, pretty simple. Honestly, I just like I like the Super Pets.
I'll give it to you. No, I won't give you pushback on that. Blue Beetle.
I don't really like real pets that much, but I like the Super Pets.
Well, they're super, and I think that says it all. Moving on into the next round, we have Blue Beetle, Graduation Day, Nightrunner, Love in Paris. Another one of those ones that I kind of regretted my decision afterward, mostly because I finally realized or remembered who Nightrunner was. And I don't know if I saw for some reason the little synopses for this. The Blue Beetle Graduation Day, although I like Jaime Reyes as a character a lot, it just sounds really corny and skewed towards a YA audience. And if it's not in the YA line and they're trying to skew it towards adults, you're kind of doing your job wrong, as far as I'm concerned, just my opinion. So for me, between the fact that Nightrunner is just like an underexposed character with a sort of very mutable sandbox to build in, and a really dope title, I chose Nightrunner, Love in Paris. What about you, man?
Yeah, Nightrunner, Love in Paris. In the Blue Beetle book, they're not doing anything new or unique or anything I find particularly interesting with that pitch. And again, Nightrunner, like, freaking banger title and baller freaking description of a cool sci-fi story with kind of like a noir feel to it. They're very clearly trying to invoke like an almost Blade Runner-esque feel just by the synopsis they chose and the title itself.
Really, I kind of got a James Bondian feel.
I mean, yeah, that's possible too, but yeah, like, yeah. Either way, cool title, cool description, I'm down. And a character that I don't have a lot of baggage associated with, so I could kind of go into it almost clean.
That's fair. Yeah, I could definitely go with that. And this next one, we have Swamp Thing, A House of Secrets, Suicide Squad 7. Do I need to say anything other than Swamp Thing, boy? But like Swamp Thing meets House of Secrets. Interesting pitch. Like you had said, it kind of harkens back to some Len Wein shenanigans, rest his soul. And the Suicide Squad pitch was literally just, hey, we're doing a Suicide Squad book.
Yeah, but we added the word 7 so that you think of Super 7, which is a book that fans have been wanting us to bring back for a long time, but we never will.
Yikes.
We brought it back once and it was real bad, so we're not doing it again.
Oh boy. If only we said the same thing about bringing Bendis back for more comics. Anyways, ultimately, man, I mean, I feel like everybody who knows you and saw our last collaboration together on the Comics That Made Us will know why or at least get a sense as to why you chose Swamp Thing, which everybody should go check out that video. It's like only 2 episodes of Let's Talk Comics back. Why'd you pick Swamp Thing? I don't understand it, man. I don't get it.
Swamp Thing is just an awesome, versatile character, and in this particular instance, again, like the Lin Wein, harkening back to that. Also, it's a version of Swamp Thing that we have seen a lot less done with. And like by taking a modern approach to that version of the character, we could get some really cool stuff out of it that doesn't, basically have us diluting down like what is almost the perfection of Swamp Thing that was Alan Moore's run. As we were saying earlier, what do? You give him wings, or you give him a crown, or you make him look like Alan Moore so that people just keep remembering how, lesser than that work this version is.
It's hard to say because it sounds really pessimistic, but like, yeah, we already know it's going to be lesser to Alan Moore's to varying extents. Again, the extent to which that is the case is up to the creative team, I suppose.
Yeah.
But, ultimately it's Swamp Thing. The pitch is a little bit more detailed for whatever you can do in 2 sentences. And the Suicide Squad pitch is just kind of like, yeah, it's Suicide Squad. Finally, we get into I think what is the hardest choice for both of us tonight. In Asteria, the Last Amazon, as opposed to Superman and Lois Ignition. Putting my thoughts into a brief summary, I could go with them both. I would prefer both of these as opposed to the round with the Super Pets and Jesse Quick, or the Lobo versus Creeper. But if I had to choose, I'm so desperate for Superman, and especially after listening to Corey's rationale about the seeing Superman in a stable relationship with Lois again, or the potential of that, is just something I didn't realize that I missed as much until I heard it. We just, and while the Asteria book does sound vaguely interesting, again, based on these 2 sentences, I'm gonna have to let my desperation prevail and go Superman. NerdScum, why is this your final choice of the evening?
Well, like, I'm not gonna reiterate the things that you said. All those are very valid for like my choice, but like, frankly, just on a base level, keeping it simple as possible. If you give me a choice between fantasy and science fiction, I'm almost always going to take science fiction. Okay. And the science fiction pitch for the story sounds like it could be dope. So I'm down for it.
Awesome. Yeah, it's cool getting your perspective on that, man. Funnily enough, Mark McKeever says, pleads with me to stop mentioning Bendis. If you say his name 3 times, he gets assigned another DC title to butcher. Don't blame. Have you watched a Comic Boom video? Just saying, if anybody's to blame, it is that ever so dear Canadian friend of ours. So don't blame me. I am small potatoes compared to that. Or if you watch I would challenge somebody to go through all the episodes of Let's Talk Comics that I've done with Boom, and to find to find one episode where he doesn't mention Bendis. Challenge. Saint. And that's not a knock. It is just funny and kind of true.
Well, if you talk to a religious person long enough, they're going to mention the devil. You talk to a comic book person long enough, they're going to mention Brian Michael Bendis.
Yikes. So with that, those are our choices for round 1 of the DC round robin. Certainly an interesting, eclectic group of books. Unfortunately, just no information really was given. The creative teams are going to be a big game changer when it comes to this next round. And I guarantee you, I already had choices that I regretted picking. I will likely have more once they release the creative teams and those 2 sample pages. But make sure you guys go click the link in the description below to check out both of our Twitters so that you can vote in the poll as to whether or not NerdScum should actually vote in the round robin. It'll be a good time. And ultimately, man, I wouldn't have had this conversation with anybody else, and I'm glad that it was you, because you brought a very different perspective from my own on this one. So thank you, man, for hanging out and sharing your thoughts.
Yeah, man, it was great being on the show again. Thanks for having me. For sure.
For sure. Obviously, you got some cross stuff coming out, but do you want to briefly kind of go into detail, let the folks know what they have to look forward to over on your channel?
Yeah, actually, it'll be going as soon as we actually get done with this video, this live stream. My review for Godzilla versus Kong will be up. I'll be posting that here in like the next 15-20 minutes. My next Crossed video will be coming out not this week, but next week, and that's going to be covering Crossed by Alan Moore issue 3. Which is really like where his volume of Cross really starts to hit its stride in terms of plot and character development and things like that. So that should be really fun. And then here in another couple of weeks, I'm actually going to be starting a parallel thing that I'm doing where instead of reviewing individual issues, I'm going to have guests start coming on to just discuss different story arcs and volumes from the Crossed franchise. And as well, you know, we'll see what else happens. I recently just got another screenwriting gig, so I'm going to have a few less videos coming out in the next few weeks. But, like, yeah, I got some comic book stuff. I got some movie stuff. I might have some TV stuff, you know, so just check it out. See, you got a little bit of everything, you know, for the most part. I don't really talk about music because, you know, it's not really my wheelhouse. I played in punk bands and I was really bad. So, you know, I'll let Todd in the Shadows handle that shit.
Well, you know your comics, that's what matters. And also too, for anybody that wants to keep up with your antics surrounding films, where can they do that?
Well, I mean, I am on Instagram at just NerdScum on Instagram, or at NerdScum at Corey Ari on Twitter. You can always check me out on Facebook, and actually even on the YouTube channel. Like, most often, I don't really do it for my screenwriting stuff, just because that's not really very. Sometimes I do talk about it, but I don't do like in-depth videos about it. It doesn't really work for videos, but I've definitely got some playlists that dive into the movies I've been in, with trailers and behind the scenes stuff and interviews, and even like some readings from the scripts that I've written in terms of like read throughs and stuff, just on the YouTube channel. So if you're interested in more of the stuff I've done filmmaking wise, it's definitely on there. And you can also look for, here in another couple of months, Trauma, the people who created Toxic Avenger, will be releasing their Grindsploitation 9, which has 2 of my short films on it.
Yeah, man, definitely. And his Twitter and YouTube are in the description. So I'm sure after that, you can simply search his Instagram, look him up. Great guy, great, interesting mind. Over the last couple weeks, we've been talking a lot just generally about story and inspirations and influences. And like, just to give you just to kind of show as opposed to tell, I've been staying up until like 4 a.m. talking to this guy about stories. So the guy knows story. He's good at what he does. I actually own two of your films that you've worked on.
Yeah, you've got my short film that's on the Trauma Grindsploitation, as well as
in Korean,
my first feature film that I did, and I have the poster right here.
Yes, sir.
When it was released, it's called Bloodsucker's Handbook. But yeah, got 2 of them.
Yeah, so you guys know I have good taste. That's why you're here. So go check out his movies, because I have those too. And with that, what you can look forward to on the channel, obviously weekly Let's Talk Comics videos. You know, if I can, you know, I like to do 2 in a week, as I did last week. I was fortunate to, but you'll definitely look forward to one of these next week. This week, I would really like to put out a review on Daniel Warren Johnson's first issue of Beta Ray Bill, because I've really been looking forward to it. I've been really digging Donny Cates' Thor and the context that Beta Ray Bill is now in due to that. So I'm excited. Next week, you can 100% look forward to a review on Jeff Johns and Gary Frank's Geiger #1. I'm super stoked to talk about that. So you have those on the horizon. If you haven't already, link in the description. Check out my Nightwing #78 review, best DC comic in forever and a half. So, you know, go give it a look. I think the review came out pretty good. And yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching, whether you were here live to give us your thoughts, the likes of Comic Boom, of course, Mark McKeever, the Sea Commander, Mr. DC Comics. You've all been great. Thank you to my partner in crime for this evening for putting up with my bullshit. And we'll catch you next week on another episode of Let's Talk Comics.
Right on. Later, guys.